It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown.
Here.
Cox.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Gerke.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Neal.
Here. Take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Everybody's got previous meetings minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, those then approved as presented. Katie, would you announce visitors, please?
Yes. So we've got a whole family back here for you. We've got Linda and Norman Alcorn, Allison Martin and her Brandon Martin, and Dina Morris. And then we've got Ryan Shelton as paramedic.
Speak up.
And Steve Galloway, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Next item is a life-saving award.
All right. Got my near side of the glasses. Long glasses. Everybody's fuzzy in the distance. I'm gonna get through this back here. I just wanted to take the board through a little story about what happened. 3 weeks ago on Easter Sunday, on 17th April, we were called out to the Alcorn residence. I'm just going to kind of read through this a little bit, and it kind of explains the nature of what happened, and kind of go into details. I'm obviously doing this with permission of family, so we're not breaching HIPAA laws or anything here. Ryan Shelton and Brittany Van Boeven were working on the truck, as well as Florian Hammer, on one of our VCs, responded to the residence. Apparently, he began choking on some, Norman began choking on some ham, as I recall, yeah. The family on scene tried to do the Heimlich maneuver to no avail. By the time we showed up, I believe Norman was sitting next to the sink, kind of losing consciousness. I don't know how much of this you may remember, sir, but yeah, it's very painful, and very, very difficult to do. Unfortunately, they were unable to get anything completely out. Probably helped get it at least partially out, but not all the way. So by the time we got there, Mr. Alcorn was basically losing consciousness. Our crews arrived, laid him on the ground. They tried another Heimlich maneuver to no avail. He was agonally breathing. His respirations, he was breathing somewhat, but it's basically agonal respirations. He was moved to the floor and laid on his back. Ryan went in as a paramedic. We're able to do laryngoscopy, which is when you go into the throat basically and pull everything up, and we could look directly into the trachea. At that time, just stop me if I get this wrong, Ryan. At that time, I did find one piece of the foreign body airway obstruction, was able to pull it, but it didn't really help anything. Mr. Alcorn subsequently deteriorated even further to the point where the crew began chest compressions and CPR, which is basically the next step once the person loses consciousness in a choking situation like that. CPR was done for about 2 minutes. I believe Ryan went back in again, used some forceps as well as laryngoscopy, and removed a second piece of ham. And it's very, very rare where we see somebody go from just the edge of dying and unresponsiveness and CPR being done. You know, resuscitative rates on cardiopulmonary resuscitation are very low by their very nature. So when we see somebody turn around as quickly as he did, by the time they got to the hospital, I believe you were awake and talking and everything, picked up and like a rebirth.
Crack a joke or two now.
Yeah. So absolutely one of the best possible outcomes we could have. I don't think if they'd have got there much later, the family with their quick actions, calling 911 and their efforts, I think everybody ought to be getting life-saving awards here tonight, not to diminish Mr. Shelton's efforts. So for that, tonight I'd like to present this life-saving award to paramedic Ryan Shelton. Brittany Van Boeven is not on duty. I'll be catching her next time around. So you heard the story and so forth. But Ryan, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. A million. There's things, it's been enough.
Yeah.
It went from the worst possible outcome to the best imminence.
No doubt. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, next time, you like, call me and say, hey, I need you to come to the meeting, be a little bit more. I've been nervous all day.
Well,
No, that's the phrase is, do you got that? And that's what nobody wants to hear from me.
Yeah, it's probably, should come to.
So, yeah.
There was no public comments in it, so we'll move on to the officer's report. Chief's report.
All right, call volume through April is on page 6. If there's no questions about that, we're up a little bit from last year, 464 transports, we're up by 30 transports. That is total call volume. You can see where we're at right now for the years at 1,708 at the end of April. No flights were transported from the scene to LZ, and none direct from the scene either for the Sedalia crews. We only had 4 status level 0 events, no missed calls during that period. A couple of them were on the brief, but like I said, we're trying to walk those a little bit differently now, so that anytime, whether it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes, we'll keep track of those, so we know the challenge. Question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the, you probably mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Why do we do transfers from Golden Valley when they have 2 ambulances down there?
When who has 2 ambulances? Golden
Golden
Valley.
Valley,
They don't always have 2 ambulances. It's kind of unpredictable as to how many.
so it's when
ambulances
they
have.
don't have,
It's when they don't have that, or their ER is particularly busy, or they're off running other calls. Then a lot of the transfers we take out of there are fairly high acuity patients, so they can't wait. They'll start calling around for mutual aid. That's what those transfers are, is a mutual aid call.
so these people are in, they're not just going to an appointment somewhere, they're in
No,
a
sir.
medical.
Yes, medical emergency.
It's almost a 911, but not quite.
It's a 911 out of the ER. Yes.
Okay,
You got it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you explain to me the phrase status level 0?
Oh, sure, yeah. Sorry, there'll probably be several times I
Well,
just throw something at me if I don't hear you. Status level 0, we have 6 trucks up here. We have 2 trucks at station 2, 4 in the city, and then 4 down south, or 2 down south, for a total of 8 trucks. We consider PCAD to be status level 0 when all 6 trucks in Pettis County's district are out and busy, occupied with calls. And that's when it rains and pours, they'll come in. Even if we don't have any trucks available, what we do to cover those situations is we have mutual aid contracts with all adjacent counties. But the nice thing about it is we've got Windsor, so if we're out, Windsor truck can float up. If both Windsor trucks are out, we can float one down there for kind of covering our own mutual aid calls.
And follow-up question, the difference between invalid and canceled?
An invalid is sometimes, since we use a central dispatch, they're dispatching law enforcement as well as us and fire. Every once in a while, we'll inadvertently be put onto a call with fire or generally it's law enforcement for anything from an assault to a dog barking call that they didn't really need EMS. They weren't supposed to dispatch us. It's an inadvertent dispatch.
Okay.
We still have to write a report for it, so it does affect our call numbers, and that's why I put it.
Thank you.
Sure. And yeah, that was it. That's it. Okay. Moving down to Windsor, last year we ran 55. We were up a little bit this year, 64. Nothing completely unpredictable. We did have one flight that was transported from the scene to an LZ. And the reason I separate those in the transports versus no transports, we did fly also one directly from scene. Anything that we fly directly from a scene, such as a car wreck or major medical that doesn't have any access, we don't move wheels. If the wheels don't turn once the patient's on board, we cannot bill for that call. So that's why I separate them there. One's billable. Any other questions on those calls? Move back to the regular report on page 4. We've got a head repair. The head repair was done. That unit was done, placed in service. It has thrown a check engine light, but I think that's some tune-up issues. We're having it checked out right now. Otherwise, it's been running fine. It'll be placed back in service as soon as we clear it. The repair estimate was approved and the unit was taken down to North Carolina. This is the unit that was struck out on 50 highway by TT highway. The insurance company did approve that estimate. They came up, picked the unit up, and we got about a 6-week ETA on that. Kind of dovetailing into that is the new AEV unit on order. You might remember was going to take about a year. It's been moved up into actually, I anticipate us going out to inspect it in June. The AEV, the company that builds them, actually flies us out there and we go through the unit with literally a white glove and look at every single piece of it, because it's a lot easier for us to catch any little flaws in the manufacturing details there than have it shipped all the way here and have to try and repair it, coordinating with other shops. So we will go pick it up probably about the same time. I anticipate getting both of those units around late June. And then, as you know, after we get a new unit, it takes a little while to install radios and some decals and some other things that are done at Columbia and here. But at this point, I would anticipate it being actually the new unit being in service sometime around early July. So administration, the gutter repair was complete. The 7-inch guttering looks great over there. It seems to sets off those new windows. It really looks better across the street. It's looking very nice. The ramps were installed. These were, you may recall, we ordered the longer ramps over there so that the trucks don't go down so steeply into the bay and they're not so prone to rocking back and forth. I actually went out there today and kind of watched a few units come in and out. And I believe it's made a very big difference. They can get a little closer to the walls. They have a lot more tolerance as far as getting in and out of those narrow doorways. So those are working out fantastic. They aren't closed off like the other ones were underneath, so any kind of moisture can be whipped out of there pretty easily. So I think that'll be a very, very good deal and hopefully prevent some minor bumps and scrapes on our ambulances that we've had so far. The overhead door, the west, like we call it Bay 1, or the West Bay, the first door here, completely came off the tracks and got all askew and it failed. It wasn't even the door that failed, it was actually a cable. They came out and kind of did a patchwork on it so that we could raise and lower it carefully, but not enough for 911 calls. So we've shifted all the units to run out of the second bay down there, as well as sometimes the far eastern bay. The last time we got an estimate was probably going to be looking about midweek, hopefully tomorrow. They'll be out to actually repair and replace that door. So, which it was one of the doors that was scheduled to be replaced. It's been a problem for a while. So hopefully that will be taken care of. It does shut in the meantime, so nothing else is getting in. And one of the things we were worried about when we put those ramps in was the top panel, because the ramps brought the contact point up on the bottom, was the top panel not being able to shut all the way. And even without being adjusted, that space is minimal. So I think everything's going to work out just fine with the door installation. So I don't anticipate any problems. Computer telephone systems. I left this kind of blank if Ryan had any kind of update on the new security systems. There were some component swaps because of just manufacturing changes since we put the order in, but other than that, no price changes. Anything else?
Different supplier, that's the main change. So if you take the order from a supplier, no cost change, everything's covered.
And they have they give you any sort of update on the ETA? Shipped today. Okay, excellent. No updates or pending software updates. There has been a couple Democrat articles, as you can see listed in there. I did want to point out, we got a few phone calls and a few very concerned people for good reason. The Adair County ambulance was transporting a patient to a facility somewhere south of their district. Well, they came through Pettis County and found themselves smack dab in the middle of a pursuit. An individual drove across HH Highway and hit them inside, rolled their ambulance with a patient on board and the crew on board. Very luckily and very happily, no one was seriously injured on the ambulance. The patient was okay. I believe a couple of them were checked out of the hospital. This article kind of gives the details, all the details that I can't give because it hit pretty much everything you need to know is in there. But A, it wasn't our ambulance, and B, the crew that was on it have actually spoken or emailed back and forth with their district administrator. He thanked us for our help on that. Very glad that no one was seriously injured. PCAD is, I'm gonna have much more information on this to follow. We've got a couple employees that are kind of spearheading some peer support groups for, a lot of this is for critical incidents, stress debriefings, any kind of major call that majorly upsetting call, particularly something that really tries our crews, pediatric calls, mass incidents, anything that really kind of puts them in a tight spot where they kind of have to work out problems out. Peer support groups are a way to kind of hopefully stave off problems further down the road, as well as identify problems that might be need to address more professionally later on down the road. So they're very important. It is something we're working on. And I've got a couple of employees that are just doing a fantastic job of reaching out and gathering our local resources for this. So I look forward to being able to update the board as we move forward on that with that progress. So far, it's looking great. It shouldn't be an issue. Of course, the task force information is there if you're interested in the COVID numbers. It's in the teens now, I believe, is positive cases last week. I'm not sure about the hospital, how they're doing. Zero is a great number. Okay. All right, over here in the education building, we're doing this month. I know a lot of these probably look the same, but they are different. Pre-hospital trauma life support, or PHTLS. Just put a brief description of what that is. It's exactly what it sounds like. They go through the most difficult, complex calls you could encounter, and we work through them with mannequins, tools. A lot of it is verbalization and going through and giving field diagnoses and treating what we find. That's everything from pneumothoraces, collapsed lungs rather, hemorrhage, shock, disabilities, or elderly patients, pediatric patients, whoever runs the gamut. So this is a good time of year, as you can imagine. You can start heading down the lake. Our motor vehicle crashes skyrocket, and we do so until the end of summer. So we try and give everybody a nice little refresher before that season really gets into full swing. For consideration by the board to wrap things up, I don't have anything from 5229. No new hires or separations. However, I do have some FMLA updates. We've got one that's doing light duty. I don't have an ETA on that one, hopefully not long. We've got 3 out on FMLA. I anticipate they're all 3 of those are likely to be back sometime next month. These were not work-related incidences, so but just enough to keep them unable to do their full duties at work. So they're out on FMLA for the time being. No demotions or status changes, other than like I said, I've got number 4 down there. Excuse me, Roman numeral 5. Unfortunately, I am losing a paramedic, a full-time paramedic. She's going to PRN status, and I've talked to her, and I believe she's going to fill in some shifts, but she found a job a lot closer to home, so considerably closer to home. So we are going to be having to probably advertise for that paramedic position here pretty soon for a full-time spot. But she's good. She's been with us. She was in my original EMT class, actually in 2014, and has progressed over the years at PCAD as a leading paramedic. So she's going down there, but I'm going to still keep trying to get her back. So if she's watching this, that's all I have, gentlemen, from my report tonight. If you have any questions.
Questions for Eric?
Oh, and we did get, I did want to provide another update on the door at the southwest door. at the TP station, we did an official estimate on that. It's 2250. Okay, sorry, I think that was in the jet. Yeah. Okay, yeah, page 8, if you keep going. And as usual, the vehicle mileage is on there. Everything's moving to the right a little bit, and no big changes. Now,
No other questions, we'll move on to the CFO report. Jamie?
So this time it's just bills and credit card statements. Do you have any questions on any of those?
Are there any questions on any of the bills?
Well, I had one, but Eric answered it on my way in the door.
Now that take a motion to approve payment of the outstanding bills.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We'll move on to unfinished business, the Windsor Ambulance District sales tax discussion. Steve Galloway's here. He can kind of explain to us where they're at in that.
Old news, I brought some brochures that we had left over that we use to provide education for our community. Our property tax relief passed with 83% voter approval, so we were very pleased with that. And we are in the process of getting all of our documentation and information pulled together. I apologize, I've been mowing today and allergies are. Just to kind of give you an idea, we have no way of knowing how much sales tax we will be able to collect. Once we submit all of our documentation, Frank Foster tells us it's going to be about 6 months before we realize any revenue from the sales tax. And then we have to have a full calendar year of collecting sales tax before they'll determine how much will be used for the property tax reduction and how much our district would get. So, of course, 50% will go to reducing property taxes and 50% will come to our district for operational costs for things like buildings and our contract with you folks. Just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that we have to have, of course, we have to have a copy of an ordinance where we've adopted the sales tax. But two of the biggest challenges we have is providing a map of our district. Since our district is in 4 different counties, it's pretty difficult to get anything. I spent most of a morning at Johnson County trying to get information, and finally what we decided that we would do, got a flat book, and then they gave me a list of property owners in the Johnson County Park. So we'll have to do that for each county, and then we'll have to go through the list to identify businesses. And with the businesses, of course, we have to have the address and all the contact information. So we have a lot of businesses that are outside of our city limits in the 4 different counties in the district. And it's just taken a little bit to get all that information. So I guess what we're hoping is that we'll have all of our information and all of our documentation done by the 1st of July to submit to the Department of Revenue. and then it'll take them, I think, from what I understand from Frank, about 6 months before they might even let us know whether or not, when it would take place. We also have to notify each business about the sales tax increase. So that is, at first, we thought we were gonna have to have their tax ID number. But the information I got from Frank this last week, it doesn't appear that we'll have to have that. Do you know for sure about that, Eric?
I don't know why we need it, as long as they've been, given notice, they're gonna be the ones using that number, so that they're changed. So,
We have been in contact with the Department of Revenue. They said that they'll walk us through it as we go along, so that's kind of where we're at. Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Yes.
How does that work if you own property in more than one county? What, you prorate that, or is it their prime address? How does that?
If somebody has a property in, say, Pettis County and are in our ambulance district, and they have property tax or property in, say, Henry County, it'll be for both. I mean, it's for
prorated then.
Yeah. And it may be only pennies, I don't know.
Okay, but I just the concept, it wouldn't all be assigned to the home address of the person.
Right. Yeah, whoever pays property tax on the property they pay, that's who will get it.
So in the meantime, Steve, so we stay getting property tax until the collections come in, right?
Yes.
And then you settle it, okay.
Yes. If for some unfortunate reason, I guess, I can't think of anything, the revenue that we're generating right now will stay the same or hopefully go up. And the property tax will kind of be gravy on top of that. Or the sales tax, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you for following me there.
Yeah, I do the same.
I have a question.
Okay.
We're in finding out those businesses that were in your diamond shaped district there. Was any agency particularly helpful in tracking those down for you? I know the Amish gave you a pretty comprehensive list of all their businesses.
Yeah.
Because they're all kind of connected down there, but I didn't know if anybody else. No. Okay. All right. And a second question, and I'll be done, was when you give notices to those businesses, is it, since legally that tax went into effect when it was passed, I assume, there's no retroactive taxing. They don't have to go back through previous revenue, just from the time they're notified forward.
My understanding is that, the tax passed, but until the Department of Revenue has all the documents in place and say, okay, starting July 1st, you can charge the tax.
All right, thanks.
So kind of limbo right now.
I just didn't know if it was one here, one there. Okay, all right.
And I don't know how it was for Pettis County in the very beginning of the organization, how they identified businesses that would be taxed.
For all of our times, none of us know.
We only had to work with the one county.
Yeah, but yeah.
That helped, I'm sure, a lot. I
Well,
can see this.
one thing I'm finding is that some of the merchants or businesses in the outside of the city limits that are in the county don't have county license. And I asked the lady at Johnson County, I said, well, we don't enforce it. So I guess we'll see what
Which
happens
county?
with that. Johnson.
Jeepers, they hammer me every year on my business license just painting their town.
Yeah.
I mean, they enforced it so much, I sent in my statement that wasn't notarized because they have a notary there too, but I sent them the money, they mailed my check back. And then when I went in to pay it, I missed the deadline, so they doubled the tax on it. Cost on the fee, but can't imagine messing a chance of money in Johnson County.
Well, I was surprised that they didn't. Well, it was that way.
Are there businesses along the southern border of Pettis County? I've been on 52 a lot. I don't ever see, I don't remember any businesses there.
They're not on 52, but if you go to the south toward Ionia, not over at Ionia, but that direction, there's several businesses.
Well, that's outside of Pettis, so
Part of it's still in Pettis. Yeah, and then it goes to Benton.
because it's mostly farmland along there. I think.
Yeah. Well, as an example, there's a buggy shop. And of course, they make buggies and sell them, and they charge you tax. And a saddle repair place is also in that area.
Probably why I don't know about
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you know where Doug Bohan's chicken houses are. You go down that road and you'll be surprised how many's down that direction.
And I don't know if this question would be for you or Chief. Is there a way to pinpoint where 911 calls come that come out of the Windsor? I'm curious as to what area where.
Yeah, we were fortunate to get the heat maps that we got from the agencies. And we can generate our own with our Pettis County Joint Communications now and do that for us. However, when it jumps over county lines, that's when it gets a little less.
Right.
Yeah, there's a way to separate actual city limit calls from, they're still called Windsor calls, but one of them will say city of Windsor and the other one will just say Windsor. And we can parse those out a little bit, but it's flexible. It doesn't really pinpoint. And that's just due to limitations of other people's dispatch systems, whether they're calling it from Henry County. If the call originated in Pettis County, we can put a tag. But most of those calls down there.
So complicated working with full counties.
It is.
Well, it's been complicated down there for me.
It is.
It's crazy.
I have to say though, the county clerks, the assessor's office, they all try to be helpful. So I mean, that's a positive thing. And some of the things we're requesting aren't easily made available.
Are there any other questions for Steve? Thanks for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
We appreciate your time.
We just wanted to give you all an update.
Thank
Where we're at.
We'll move on to GEMT 2019 adjustment.
So we received the adjusted GEMT for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. So that was the first year that we reported, and it was the second year of the state having this program. So since then, they've changed several things, which is what caused these adjustments here. So we went through the original and the adjusted to figure out what all the adjustments amounted to. And basically, billing wasn't allowed when we filed this report because we pay on a percentage basis. So that got to be added back in. And that was $169,000. So that's a pretty big plus. Another thing they allowed now that they didn't allow then was the provider tax for Medicaid. So our Medicaid is very confusing. Our actual Medicaid payments go to MoMSAC then distributes them out to everybody else and adds the federal adjustments in there, but we also pay a tax and administrative fee and a pooled funds fee. So the only one of those fees that we're allowed to deduct now is the provider tax, which was $106,000. So again, another big expense that was allowed that wasn't allowed before. They disallowed a couple of things, which are election costs and then special event revenue. And then the other big change was now they give us the MMIS data, which is Medicaid's data. They give it to us before we file these reports. Back then, we didn't have that data, so we had to go with our own data as far as what we billed for Medicaid, what we received for Medicaid, and you have to break that down into fee-for-service and managed Medicaid. Well, sometimes those get kind of convoluted and mixed together. So the revenue from our fee-for-service transports that we reported was actually higher than it was for Medicaid records. So our revenue went down about 100,000. So there was three big things there that changed everything. And then also the number of fee-for-service transports increased. So on our original report, our cost per transport
34.
you don't have the original, it was 960.91. So now it is 988.35 per call. So when you do all the math, it amounts to $314,000 adjustment. And then they took what we already received. So what that amounts to is we'll be paying the non-federal share, the $70,432.05, and then we'll receive the $202,194.68. So once we agree to this report, which I went through it, there's nothing to disagree with here. They will send us basically a bill like they do for our report. We'll pay the $70,000, we'll get 202 back in about 2 months. So we paid, I want to say we paid in March for our current year GMT, and then we just received the payment back last week. So any questions on that? I know it's a lot of information.
Just one.
Sure.
After digging through that and looking at that $988 per run, that's independent of whether it's a short run, a long run, and that is an all-inclusive of taking into account all fixed costs, depreciation, variable costs. That's the absolute.
For that time period.
Thank you.
And that was in June of 2019. It's increased considerable since then, so.
Action on this.
It's up to you guys. I mean, I don't think there's any action. You did not approve it, and then you guys will approve it.
Or any other questions? We'll move on to the Gov Deals update.
The radio closed today with no bids, so that's the second or third time we've had those on Gov Deals. I don't know what you guys want to do forward. The reserve price on them was the $3,500 for the last bid we just had. Prior to that was the $4,200.
Do you have any suggestions for us there?
Well, there's a couple routes we go. We lower the reserve fund price, realistic. Also a consideration that, somebody may recall that those radios are not really meant for emergency services, but they do have their uses, and some people might want them. As far as Gov Deals is concerned, we still have volunteer fire departments that are dispatched by fire pagers around here, so the other option might be to consider donation amongst our rural fire services. It's just a cap. We can't donate. Okay.
They can buy them for lower cost, but we can't do it.
How do these radios interact with this joint communications agreement?
Not well. They were encrypted radios when they were bought. These were original radios all the way back in 2013. And like I said, they weren't really meant to operate on the system. They're not Moslem capable, which that's what we're on now as far as it's a Missouri statewide interoperability network. I know that's a lot to remember. It took me months to figure out how the actual network works. But these radios just don't function on those. They do, however, have basic functions where they can run on, like I said, fire channels, security companies might be interested in buying them off Gov Deals. I think we could still sell them on there, but we'd have to drop.
But this number 8 in this agreement does not apply to those radios then.
Okay. But yeah, I'd say that probably path of least resistance is realistic on the lower side.
Well, since we've had no bids, it needs to be lowered considerably.
I believe, what'd you say the rest of that, Katie, last time,
35.
35.
That was the high bid.
For the prior one, we tried to send it back, they didn't accept our offer, so. We put it on their deals for another, it was just under a month. And we-
I would say, I'd recommend dropping to $5,000. A lot of times with Gov Deals, you'll get bidding wars the last few days of an auction. If you draw more interest, but if nobody's hitting reserve, they just lose interest. I do think there was 800 and some hits on it. Is that what you told me, right? Yeah. So it's not for lack of interest, it's just the price. Yeah. Yeah.
So can they see the reserve on Gov Deals?
If they bid and it doesn't meet the reserve, though, it tells them it's. Yeah, that's on there. Yeah, same thing, eBay does the same thing.
People here, it's not this.
Yeah.
But a bit.
That's the Gov Deals.
Yeah, I guess that would be another option. Drop it altogether and see what we can get out of it.
So if we sold them for $2,000, where would those $2,000 go?
We do have some radios downstairs that need to be upgraded. My preference would be put it back into the current radio system. And let it function, let it stay in the communications field. Budget.
So the option is to drop it by 1,000 or not put a reserve on it at all.
Ryan's dealt with Gov Deals probably more than I have. I think your recommendation is just drop it down to a minimum.
Minimum price and usually end up going for what we expected on those auctions.
Yeah.
Because when people get 3 reserves, messages. Reserves, so bidding more than still 0%.
It's usually the last 2 days. Where we actually see people get competitive about it, but if they're hitting up that reserve. More disqualification.
I think that's what Gov Deals recommends, is that was.
Just not the reserve. This is something. That's the reserve price.
Have we talked to Pettis County Fire or anybody else in the county?
Not officially, just in passing. I spoke with another Green Ridge Fire. Smithton Fire, I believe, has some radios, but I don't know how many they have. I'm pretty sure what they have is just mobile radios, we being the units in the trucks. I don't think they have. They do have it. It's just a limited supply. We got Hughesville, Houstonian, Green Ridge. I think our fire department down southeast is kind of dissolved pretty much, but Pettis County Fire is good. They've been plenty of stuff, but it's just those smaller ones. Lamont might be another one to consider.
It's the portable.
Yeah, it's portable. They've got lapel mics. They've got all the accessories and stuff with them. So they do a great deal for somebody who needed them. They really won't function on our system. If the Moslem network that we're on failed, to kind of go back to your question, if that network failed, we can use them in their most basic mode, to where you have to hit a repeater or actually have line of sight communications, which would be way less than optimal. But that's why I say a lot of security companies and things like that would probably be interested in, well, firefighters are communicating amongst the scene and among themselves. Pettis counties can still access those radios frequencies.
Does that system interfere at all with the other one?
No.
So if the state fair decided they wanted to get better radios, would that be a step up or step down for them?
It'd be a step down.
They're
They're already
interfere
using.
with any of the other stuff, that's what I was.
Yeah, that's a great question. Mosman, they actually bring down a portable Mosman antenna for the state fair so that they can have that statewide channel. And the Mosman it's I can't think of an analogy here, but our crews on those old radios, you couldn't hear them once they hit the county line. Now they can pull up to the hospital in St. Louis, the radio, wait 5 seconds, and we hear it like they're sitting right next to us.
Sounds like they're not doing us any good, somebody.
They're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
The cleanest way to do it's on Gov Deals, so the bidding process.
Yeah.
Make a motion that Brian pursue that, just drop it down to no reserve or minimum reserve, so the first person's gonna whack it and then they're off to the races.
Set it for a minimum of 2,500 in 30 days.
I think drop it to 2,000
Because
at least, or at most, I'm sorry.
Is that a,
Is that
With
too
no
much?
reserve.
You're thinking no reserve.
Yeah, no reserve.
No reserve would be that light a house on fire, then would. Hopefully. It only takes 2.
we have a motion to relist them on Gov Deals with no reserve.
reserve.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
for 30 days.
Yes. If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Opening prayer at the board meetings discussion. Frank Barker sent some responses.
I had asked Chairman and Chief a couple months ago about it, and Eric had some research on it, and it's included in our packet. And Mr. Foster also had some opinions in there from 41 to 43. And as a Christ follower, and as somebody that believes that God moves in prayers, and Congress opens in prayer, our city council opens in prayer. We're based on a Judeo-Christian, all 13 colonies. Each colony was basically set up by a different denomination, and yet they came together and they were able to have a common thread, which was the Bible and a belief in God and prayer. And you know, it's hard to get. To me, our bedrock is being undercut, and I really don't see anything wrong with praying that God blesses our staff, the guys that are going out, and the gals that are going out driving, and protecting them from accidents and, you know, that type of thing. Just a 2-sentence prayer or something. But I think that would say that we believe that there is a God and he is in the business of helping us.
There's a whole lot of praying goes on after that second one is pushed on a 911 call. I know
Oh,
that.
yeah. And I'm sure that family that was here tonight were praying when he was choking, you know, and they couldn't take care of it. So, yeah, but I wanted the board, you know, really to make a decision. And you know, Eric, if you want to jump in and explain what you were thinking.
Thank you. Yeah, if that pleases the board, I'd like to. My concern is I have to follow EEOC, anti-discrimination termination laws. If the problems, I guess to outline the biggest problems in a nutshell, is if a government board does it as a board, especially when they're a compensated board anyway, it blurs the lines between government speech, which is prohibited, or private speech. So what most of these districts who've done, they go through this process, they get sued by whoever. There's organizations, as I wrote in my response about that look for things like that to go get lawsuits, and they almost inevitably favor the exclusion. And that is basically, what I think the best point is, if one is expected to stand or behave in a particular way during a religious observance by having a public voice their beliefs, they kind of have to out themselves. Not everybody who doesn't have a Christian faith necessarily wants to profess that to the entire world at an open board meeting. That's therefore that's where my concern is with the First Amendment. The other problem is some of the places dealt with this matter by bringing in outside people to do it. They bring in local pastors and whatnot. However, if you do that, you open yourself up to just about anybody of any faith coming in and giving a prayer and whatever religion they like. And fully well realize that in Missouri, most of that time that's going to be Christian, but you never know. The answers I got in a nutshell from the lawyers really all point to the best course of action, if you want to do this and feel strongly about it, is to offer a moment of silence. And that moment of silence can be dedicated to all those things you said about keeping crews safe and so forth. And that's honestly the safest legal way to do it, and get your point across. It allows you to say what you want to say, and express those emotions and wants. I feel without having to tread that murky water over here on First Amendment and equal opportunity stuff. If anybody else, if the board requires anybody else to be at their meeting, there's 4 of us in here tonight, then you have to consider those things. If you just have a private board meeting with no other participants, that's my take on it after lots of research. But the moment of silence seemed to be the most non-controversial. There's really no reason to do that.
Just a darn sad thing that the tail wags of that dog all the time. And I run into the same thing painting parking lots. There's people drive around looking for one handicap parking space that's out of whack a little bit, too much grade or not wide enough offload, and then that poor business gets a letter, and then I get a phone call to come fix it because somebody was complaining, and you see people go in and out of the parking space all day long without any trouble. They're looking, they're picking.
I will say one thing that the hospital's done probably for the last 6 years is that they open the meeting with Pledge of Allegiance. And you get one nation under God in there.
Yeah, it's not part of their prayer, but
I know, but I mean, there has not been one complaint that I know of. But we're not recorded, public is invited, but it's rare that we have any there.
well, and even if the board decides not to do anything or moment of silence, whatever, I still pray as I think about it when I hear ambulances. In fact, I had 2 kids on the playground at St. Paul's, 5th graders. Ambulance went by and they were standing there holding hands. And I kind of got close and listened. And they were praying that everything was going to come out all right. I thought, wow, that's pretty good. I mean, those kids are learning. There is a power beyond us that is interested in what's going on. So, but I just wanted to bring it, I felt compelled to say it and have the board make a decision on it, so I can just put it to rest in my head, that's.
So the safest thing to do is moment of silence if we do anything.
That's the business. the attorneys I spoke to or emailed about this, rather, and all the case law and find on it, that's the way to keep yourself on a hot water. And still do something that's, could be considered spiritual. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I'd like to have a moment of silence for X, Y, and Z, all those things. So it's a loophole.
As long as you don't fall asleep when you say that. 10 minutes later.
It's not gonna be that long.
Are you gonna go for it, John?
What?
You gonna go for that moment of silence?
If that's what the board is recommending, yeah.
If you propose it, I'll second it.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that. I move that we have open our meetings with a moment of silence.
Put the words right on my mouth.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion?
If I'm,
Yes.
if you're gonna do that, can we lead that with the Pledge of Allegiance and then do the moment of silence? That's how.
Suits me, we've got a flag in there.
Yeah, we bought the flags.
May as well be a patriot too.
Just fun. Yeah.
So,
I will amend that. I'll accept your friendly amendment.
And do we have a second to that amendment motion?
I do.
Is there any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. In Missouri Statute 190.053 and 190.055.
I put that on there because the more I read that, the more I wonder how we got where we are, and I'm not sure. For instance, what does it cost us to have a meeting? That's what I was wondering. What do each of these meetings cost the taxpayers?
We have quite a bit of paper.
Well,
Preparation.
papers aside.
Preparation for a meeting costs way more than a meeting.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. No, I'm saying that we've got, it says in here that the board shall meet and not more than 2 times a month. There was talk at one time, I believe, about having a meeting and then a work session each month, with one for business and one for work session. I don't know where that came from, if it's ever been done, or if it's still under concept. And then there was the statement in here about the compensation, $100, and required training that goes to that, and it's a not more than number. Has it always been that from the get-go, from the very first? Anybody can tell me that? They set it at the max at that time, okay? And then, let's see, there's something about, the chairman, extra $50, is that in place for you? Well, it could be. And then we can pay extra for, what was it? For secretary and treasurer, whatever.
Not secretary.
Or not treasurer. And then the secretary doesn't have to be, are we paying extra for you to take the notes here at night, or, and you guys are all salaried, right? So that's okay. Because what I heard when I was campaigning was a lot about cost of going to those meals. Guys just go over there for their $200 a month and they don't do nothing. And this Angels district spends way too much money. They got more money than they need and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just digging down to find the truth so that I can pass it back. And there's just a lot of folks that's what they believe. And so I'm just trying to figure out how do we get around that. So looking at this stuff here, I can say, yes, it's just only the board members, and they get compensation for their time for preparing for the meetings. And that all of the staff that attends the meetings are salaried.
It's not salary, but if she stays late tonight, she leaves early.
Okay,
Whatever
so
they
there's
should
no
do.
there's no additional cost for that. We're not paying overtime for Katie to take notes or anything like that. So these are questions that I wanted to hear an answer of so that I can respond to my clients. And I had thought, well, maybe at one point in time, I thought it might be just symbolically, we could roll that back, just say, see, it isn't that important, but I don't know. Something crossed my mind. It's not like $100 will break me. And anyway, that's just where I'm at. So that's why I brought it up. So is there anything else I'm supposed to know about this section 190, this training? Can be done online, it can be done in person. What's the cost of that training and who pays that?
The district pays for the training, it just varies depending on where it's at, whatever they charge for the training.
Okay, and we do have a line item in the budget. This comes out of, the board training comes out of the same line as the other training. Is that where that is, or is there
No,
a
no, that's
separate
under
line
board
for?
expenses.
Where does the board in the budget? Well, I was digging around through there looking to find out what line item that the stipends and stuff come out.
So the payroll is under payroll,
Okay, but we're just lumped in payroll with everybody
Right.
else then.
and then board of directors expenses where the board training is under.
Yeah, and the election came out of board expenses, correct?
Correct. So there's a line item under board of directors expenses.
Because I'm finding a lot of blowback from people that aren't. They must pay them thousands of dollars. Well, I couldn't even point to a line item and say, yeah, here's what it cost last year for board stipends, and here's what it costs for.
Yes, that's, I mean, at max it's $200 a meeting for 6 board members, so there's 2 meetings a month.
Yeah.
So,
That'd be the maximum. Now, we don't list that as a separate line item anywhere in there for actual.
We can, we just never have, it's always been prepared.
Well, like I said, I don't have any, I had nothing I could point to, so that's why I'm here asking questions.
We've had a secretary who used to, in order to keep track of notes every once in a while about prayer cartridge. That's one example. Some other boards around here, since we interrupt your guys' dinner twice a month, we'll buy a few pizzas so the board doesn't starve to death on Tuesday nights.
Well, this is the first board I've ever been on that paid me anything other than maybe a sandwich.
That's what most of them do, is just have some snacks. Like I said, it's either gonna come in your lunch hour or evening hours, that's the way they look at it.
But since we went straight to the max, and, you know, we might consider rolling that back, but that's another discussion for another time. All right. Thank you for indulging my questions. Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Just to clarify on top, when we talked about that strategic plan, go to one meeting a month, and the board decided that we thought we needed to keep it at 2. That's for that.
Okay. And if we did go to the strategic plan, would that still pay another $100 stipend?
In my mind, it was gonna be, just be $100.
Well,
But then if we were gonna have a work session, I don't know if we did.
no, if we did the work session, if we did a work session every month, then the work session
still
would pay
be
the
the
same
same.
$100, right?
Right.
Okay, so that, just trying to get my arguments ready for Keith. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions or suggestions? Now I'm going to take a motion to go into closed session pursuant of RSMo 610.021, sections 1 and 18.
So moved.
Second.
That'll be roll call.
Brown,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Turkey,
Yes.
Graves,
Yes.
Ham.
Yep.